we're going to relieve you because we've had someone wants to come and be the manager and invest money. You don't know what's going on in the background. You don't know the communications that's been happening with the committee. Win or lose, for me, I stay low until the next session. I'm probably come across really bad sometimes when I talk to the guys because it's just saying how it is. The term, oh, they weren't that good. There's nothing worse than coming off a pitch going, oh, they weren't that good, but they just beat you.
Yes, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to another episode on the Coach Rafa's podcast. I am joined by a very experienced football manager and former football player within the English football pyramid. Sam Morgan, how are you doing today?
I'm good, mate. Bit wet outside, but yeah, I'm all well.
Good. Thank you for joining. And as always, we do not waste time on this podcast. So going straight into it, what is the key to creating a strong team environment?
The environment itself is obviously key. Like when I say that, I talk about the changing room. I'm sure most managers will probably say that as well. And everyone brings up that term, sort of bad egg. You don't want that. I think the term bad egg is loose, so but we can come on to that another time. You need to look at the dynamics. You know, who is it that's upsetting the apple cart? Can you carry that person through it? You know, or is it just too much weight on the rest of the players in there? Do you take that person out, no matter what the ability is? That for me is important. You know, the dynamics. Most recently, just gone into a team that's already gone for a pre-season, halfway through obviously the league campaign, and you start to look at the change room. Who are the characters that are pulling people through? Does everyone's head drop at that time? So for me, it's important to obviously gauge that environment instantly. Who it is that people rally around. You know, that's what I want to build. That's how I build it up first. So if I'm going from scratch, you've got to look at and find those sort of three core characters. When people talk about the spine, you've got to look at it from mentally, like how you're putting that spine together as well. You know, and that's for me, is it a talisman that's not going to say a lot, but they're going to deliver and people follow suit? Is it the person that says a lot but delivers like 6 or 7s out of 10 each week? That's how I kind of look at it from an environment perspective.
Right. And if you look at a squad of 22 players, what percentage would you look at out of those 22 that you'd really want to have be that leader on the pitch and off the pitch?
Well, if you're going from a 22 perspective, I think you've got to have maybe 10% sitting on the bench that are characters.
Okay.
Because there's going to be people that are sulking, generally unhappy, and that even that part of that 10% is not going to be happy, but they need to obviously G up what's in and around you, the right attitudes.
Yeah.
On the pitch, I think you do need like a 50% split there.
I see.
People that are going to do that.
5 to 6 players.
Yeah, because I think if you only have 2, they're going to keep going, and it just blows up. 5 or 6 across the board throughout the team, you know, as I go through the different areas, defenders, midfielders, strikers. Your goalkeeper's got to be one, by the way. I feel like the goalkeeper, if it goes wrong and their heads drop, you're in trouble with a goalkeeper. So I think for me, that's almost number one in there. So I'd say, 50% of that team in there. Obviously, the lads that are outside, I kind of base my teams around sort of younger players anyway. So I'm going to base it off the 16 rather than the 22.
I see. Right. And if you were to rank in order of importance, tactics, man management and team unity, which order and why?
Tactics, man management and team unity?
Yeah.
I think your man management still has to come first. I've said this before to a few others. I think that has to come first. Because if you can rally your team, that team unity comes along. You know, I'm not a distant manager. I'll try and dish out some banter. I'll take some banter. And if they invite me on a night out or invite me on a sort of team bonding thing, I'm there. Like, I want to be part of that. So I can get to know the players a little bit more, and that creates that team unity. Tactics is such a difficult one, mate. And I've seen your stuff, and I think it's brilliant. Yeah. Even now, I still, I learn off everyone. So I'm like, okay, let me see what's he saying today. Ultimately, when it comes to the game plan, and when you're there on the sideline, your tactics are great, and sometimes that will win you the game. But if someone's got the better moves on you, and you've got you at checkmate, you've got to find something else.
Exactly.
So they're important, but they probably come last in. I'll probably say man management, team unity, and then tactics.
Right. And with man management, so let's say you're dealing with a player who feels like they should be playing more than they are. How do you deal with that situation?
I probably come across really bad sometimes when I talk to the guys, because it's just saying it how it is. And
right.
I think for me, when you do say it how it is, you know 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get a positive response, because I find that people want a little bit more fluff first, and I think that's my personality. Okay. Maybe is not the fluff. If they then take that on board, and I'm watching a lot of things, by the way, so when we have that conversation, I do this on the pitch. I was like, okay, well, you've missed a few points. You might be turning up late. You might be not really applying yourself in the warm-ups because you found out you're on the bench. You've not applying yourself in certain other ways, maybe at training. Suddenly, you want to play on Saturday, but then suddenly get an excuse at, half an hour before training to say I can't make it.
Yeah.
I'm ticking all that off. I'm giving them all that information. So for me, I think that's important, for me to understand the player and for them to understand me. I think my man management style probably is okay. I would probably say it needs to get. I know from me that there's elements that I can do better, but one thing I've learned as it's gone is like the generational gaps between sort of when I was playing to obviously the new style player and change room is so different. And I think you're having to bring in. I think a lot of guys now, and I hopefully that they don't shoot me down for this, bring a lot of their outside noise into football. Whereas I think before it was an escape. So no matter what was going on in my life, when I came to football, this was the times of sort of just like I'm away. I'm as literally at the same level as every single person in this changing room in society. Like any problems, whether it's the misses, whatever it may be, it's gone. Yeah. But I think some of that comes in, and I think that's where I've had to pick that up now a little bit more. Like I'm not going to specifics about players, but there have been issues I know where players have got things going on the outside, and you can see it coming in, and then it might be taken out on me, the team, or their levels drop off, and it's like really digging into like what's going on. So man management, that's why I say it's so key. For me, it's so key. There's so many other moving pieces. So my style now is just to try and find out as much as possible what they're like, who needs the arm around them, who needs the shout, who do they respect in that change room, so that I can maybe lean on that player to get a little bit out of them. So
I see
little styles like that for me.
Now, within semi-professional football, obviously contact time is not as much as full-time football. So understanding players on the pitch and off the pitch can be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So what are some actual physical methods that you implement in terms of getting closer to understanding a player?
WhatsApp's a beautiful thing because the WhatsApp group tells a lot. Who is it that's always chatting? Who responds to what? You see the people that suddenly pick up their interest because they like to talk about what's going on in the Premier League, or they want to talk about the skills that someone's like Neymar's just dropped an absolute Rabona on someone, and they want to talk about that. I try and pick up those little bits so I can then relate to them when I go to talk to them. Find out their likes and dislikes, obviously from that. When it comes to training, again, like when you say that limited time that you've got, is again that those few minutes in the changing room before we're obviously going out is key. You can kind of then see who's down, who's had a long day. It's those minutes there are vital for me. So I kind of like try and work out who is it that's always on time, always bubbly. Okay, can I pop that person for a minute while I can see someone's like almost head in hands? It's been a long day. Find out what it is. Is it just been a rubbish day at work? Is there something going on outside? Try and pick those moments. So it is tough. Obviously, like you said, it's limited time with training. I think it's obviously very key to like sort of elevate that time as well. So like for me, and again, I'm sure a couple of lads will be like, where have you got that from? But it has been sort of taken an idea from a couple of other clubs and managers that I've spoken to. They do a Thursday club, and I think it's brilliant. Have that time, like bit of training, but then actually half of the time's then spent together, whether it's going for a bite to eat or staying in a club bar. Being in and around it for guys to actually understand their teammates. It's not just about me and the team, it's the teammates individually. You're saying it's limited time for them. They come in, they get changed, they train, they go. How do they get to know their teammates? Everyone talks about team bonding nights out, that's great. Half the time they plaster themselves with alcohol, so they forget, right?
And it's once every 4 or 5
months. Exactly. So at this time it's quite nice, and obviously it brings a little bit togetherness as well. And I think it's very vital that you have that, not just about me, as say the teammates together, because you talk about team unity, so it then interlinks again.
Yeah. Right, and linking to your latest role with Lansing, when you went straight into the club, they were at a certain position in the league.
Yeah.
So when you walk into a new club and you see that they're struggling, what is the first thing that you look at and be like, I need to change that, and then you work from there? Basics.
It's not about changing anything instantly. It's actually just related to them. Here's your chance now. We know, and I've seen it on yours. I've seen it in many others. The basics: run, work hard. Let's see if you can actually do those basics. Do you want to be here? So I didn't change anything instantly when I got there. It was like here's your game, like with everyone that we've got. go and play this game. Let's see how you get on. We won the first game at Lancing, and it was just ultimately, I think they had a run of, I think it's 13, 14 games, won one, drew one. 4 points sitting right at the bottom there. You're looking at going, let's see where's the confidence at there. Can we build that up? Is it shot completely? And I'd seen them the week before against Merstham, a very good side. Like obviously Jamie de Cruz there's got these guys playing some tremendous football, and I was like, there's actually something there. Just at moments they stop working, at moments they switch off, and they lost that game that day. And obviously it was like, okay, look, let's just go back to the basics. I know there's some good footballers, so that was a collective. Then from what I'd seen and conversations I had with other people, I had to rally 3 or 4 players, and there was 2 young players there who I just thought, to me, I'm going to build around you. And and it was like, whilst everyone went out for their first session, I said, look guys, you two, I'm looking at you two to go and rally this team. They're youngsters, and I think just wasn't pressure, it was just to G them up a little bit, going, okay, you've seen me,
especially on the first week.
Yeah. And they were tremendous all the way through. I think they probably played the most minutes out of everyone. They took it on board. They're not going to be your leader talking away at everyone, but what they did was consistency throughout every minute of football that they played. So it was like, okay, let's go out. We won that game. It's not a case of, right, we won that game, I'm just going to roll with it again. I spent that time, we won the game, but it's like, right, now we're looking for perfection. So it's like, okay, who is it that didn't quite get how we're set out to play? Who was it that was a little bit off? Who was carried by someone? Who took instruction? What did they do when we did win the game? Did they go and see the fans? Did they just walk in? Did they get changed and then go?
Just the little details.
Those little details for me are key, and that was it. Then realizing, okay, the goalkeeper for me, he's a good goalkeeper, just not my sort of goalkeeper. So it was like, okay, need to go and find that senior head. We're missing a bit of a talisman up top, and there were some good players, people with pedigree. I think there was 2 players in there that have played league football like only a year ago. Youngsters that have gone and got minutes, and I'm like, okay, but they're not quite where we need to be. So it was just then now, right, okay, let's start piecing together. That's after game 1. Game 2, you go and look at it again. You're like, okay, this person's still not getting it, or that person actually did get it this week. We've had another 2 sessions, so you kind of have about 4 or 5 games for me to go and see by then. And after that, right, I kind of know the team I've got certain targets in. One important thing for me as well is people that care about the club. So when you go into a team, is that whole squad new? Is there any sort of relationships built with the fans there? I mean, Lancing get anywhere between sort of 250, 300 fans, right? They're going to build a bit of relationship. So that was bit of like the recruitment factor, was like, okay, can we get lads that have either played or there's a relationship? So we brought in a few players that had done that, and it rallies the fans. They get excited, more energy, exactly. And then people recognise those players that are walking into the changing room. It G's everyone up, or it goes, oh, I need to pull my weight here because it's probably competition. So that's how I kind of go in when I go in with that, and just show that I'm not a complete bad guy, but try and raise standards a little bit to say, you're not going to get away with this anymore. You're not going to get away with just jumping in a rondo and doing keepy uppies for 5-10 minutes. Now we're getting straight to work. There's little pieces like that to me to sort of raise that level and, give them a target to get out, that belief. Yeah. And we did all right, to be fair. Like I said, for anyone that's seen it, it was shared with me the other day, from what I mentioned there, 4 points in whatever it was, 13, 14 games. So suddenly getting it up to a point per game, and actually in a position to fight and get them out of it when everyone had written them off, and people saying to me, why did you take the job? So it was a nice feeling, obviously, at the time, obviously, to get them to where they should be and potentially out of trouble.
Right. And you've just mentioned standards. So what are 2 to 3 non-negotiable standards that you'll take with you wherever you go?
I think for me is whatever's outside is left outside, and when you come in, you separate it.
Does that apply to you as well?
Yeah, because I have some tough time. My work, like with what I do, is tough, and people would joke and be like, "Are you ever working?" When I'm always working. So I can't. That time, those 3 hours, 4 hours, what it is with football, is the only time I'm switching off.
So if your team suffered a heavy defeat, would you draw a line and go back to work and be normal? Like, would it not?
No. When I for me, when I lose, or even if I win or lose, for me, I stay low until the next session. So
okay.
So for me, it's we've lost on a Saturday. I'm going to be grumpy Sunday thinking about it, dissecting it. Monday, I'm going to be grumpy dissecting it, talking to players about what they could have done, what they did well, etc. That's fine. Tuesday, it's gone. You know, for that training session or that game, whatever it may be, it's gone. You know, on the lows. I think for me at that point, it's like, okay, well, here's another chance now to go and get the high. You know, and that's where it's left at the door at that point.
I see.
Same with when you win, because you can be, you know, the best Saturday night. Yeah, the wife's happy. She's checked Twitter and gone, yeah, he's going to be in a good mood. Do you know what I mean? Sunday, it's another great day. Daughter's probably got an extra present because daddy's happy and all that sort of stuff. That's great. Monday, still buzzing. Players are all loving it in the group and everyone's all happy. But if you take that too much into Tuesday, whilst you've got to have a little bit of confidence, you can switch off. So it's like, okay, well done. You've had your 3 days or whatever it may be. Now it's back to work on what we're about to do again on Saturday. You know, what did we do right last Tuesday and Thursday to get the result? Let's do that and more this week.
Right. So being level-headed.
Yeah. And I'm emotional. I'm an emotional guy. I think people will say that, like on the sideline, they're probably like, "Is this guy right?" Like, you know, but, you know. But that's me in that moment. And then even in the changing room afterwards, you know, people are like, "Is he all right? Like, does it like?" But then once it's done and we're in the bar, and you know, if you've lost at that point and you're there with the fans and the players, it's like, it's done. You've heard what you've had from me, and now it's like we can be upset, but that's done. What was gone on in that changing room is gone on in the changing room.
I see. And if you were at a team where results are very sort of mediocre, draw, loss, win, draw, loss, how do you get some energy back into the squad? How do you change that? How do you bring some momentum?
It's finding what the goals are and your capabilities are, obviously within the club as well, right? At that point, you know, are you winning, win, lose, draw, win, lose, draw, whatever? You know, that inconsistency because of not necessarily. I don't want to put it on the players per se, but if your budget constraints have got you in a position where you've got a mediocre side, okay, what do I need to do to maybe elevate that? Right, okay, I start to look at leagues below, people that maybe those teams that are not performing, but there's some great players there to elevate. You can look at it there from a recruitment point of view.
Okay.
But then you come back to the team unity bit, because there are some sides that you play against and people, the term, oh, they weren't that good. Yeah, it's the worst. There's nothing worse than coming off a pitch going, oh, they weren't that good, but they just beat you. What is it that, was it tactics, or was it the fact that there's literally 11, 16 men that got together at that time and they believe in each other, they fight for each other and get that result? They might not be the best footballers. And I've seen teams all up and down. Even in the Premier League, if you went and looked at your Burnleys that survived all of those years, they were nowhere as well as like that. And technically, they're not as good as maybe 20 other teams that could have come into the Premier League. But it was just that fight. So that's what you got to try and find. And then again, you try and find what is it that's going to like want that man to fight for the person next to him, or fight for me as the manager or the coach or whatever it may be on the club, to try and sort of rally them. But then now with football being changing ever so slightly, the likes of VO and your instant replay and all the footage that you can get, why don't you go and look at the stuff that you did well, and about here's why you won those games. You know, have you got the vests on? Well, everyone ran over 10k. You lost that game, but everyone ran under 10k. Actually, it was closer to 8k. Okay, so let's go and next game, see how we got on when everyone does 10k again. Did you get a point? Did you win? Okay, so that's one factor. You know, did we get, how many crosses in the box did we get that week? Well, when you won, you got 30 crosses in the box. When you lost, you got 10. Why? You know, why did that happen? And is that a correlation to why you got those points? So we break that down as well. So there's off the field, mentally, like getting them all sort of buzzed up and why you need to obviously be putting in the basics, but then breaking it down a little bit with the analytics as well. And normally I have someone that does that for me, and then I get the figures, but then we start breaking it down. But and that comes from a management team to obviously do that. It's not all on one man. You know, it's got to come from your staff as well.
And when it comes to letting players express themselves and play freely, where's your stance on that?
I'd probably say once you're in the final third, for me. When I say, because I don't potentially want someone trying to do pirouette on the edge of the 18-yard box, and it might come off and it looks fabulous, like, yeah, great, and then they ping a 50-yard die, I guess, yeah, well done. Do it again and see how you get on. Like, can you do that every time? Whereas I think for me, when I see players in the final, I don't want to be robotic. That's, to me, the hardest thing is scoring a goal. So if I'm making it robotic and that they're thinking about me, the time that they now think about me to do it, the chances are gone. Instincts is great. Yeah. Like, 2 players recently, Noel Fisher was with me at Lancing, has just gone to Three Bridges after I left. He's that, like, pure instinct. There's stuff that he can work on. He's a young lad. There's stuff that he's going to work on, but he could be phenomenal, like, in that sense. He off the ball is when you coach and then they're like, right, this is what I'm going to give you, you're going to do this and you're going to follow this. But when you're there, that's fine. I think the only thing I would obviously give him is he needed to come with end product, because he would chop, and there's like 3 dead bodies now on the floor.
What's next?
But then what was next? And he went to do the 4th and then lose it. It's like, okay, well, you didn't, that's great, but we didn't get anything from that. So it's like, you can go and do this bit, but now the only thing you need to hear in my head, or my voice in your head, once you've done that, shot, cross, whatever it is at that point, and just build him up from that till eventually he doesn't hear my voice, he just does that, and then comes back to the instincts again of whether he should shoot or cross at that time.
I see. So just with this young player that you've mentioned, what is it about a young player when you look at him and you're like, I see something different in him and he's going to go very far?
I think it comes down to a little bit of how they approach the game.
It's up in here.
Yeah, I think it is there, but also just when I say approach the game, that's when it comes to training, like, you can see they love football, like, just love football. Like, I know that everyone gravitates to a football and stuff like that, but do they want to be always part of the banter and then that's it, and then football comes next? I'm like, I'm not sure. Yeah, from the older guys, yeah, it is what it is. They know what's about to come. You know, they've seen every session under the sun. Youngsters, like, yeah, you're getting in there, enjoying it, and they're being part of it. But you know, they're homing in on their skills. They want to do those extras even before we've started. You know, that how they approach it. Then, are they then, when we're all huddling around talking about what we're trying to do, what the session's going to be, what we're doing about on Saturday? Is it eye contact, or is it, even if it's looking down at the floor, can I tell they're paying attention? Because when I call out their name or talk about their position, suddenly they lift their head up. You know, to me, that just shows that they're obviously engaged. They're thinking about what they want to do. They don't necessarily always need to pick up the phones. We get people with different personalities. You know, we get an introvert that might not want to do that. But when I do go to speak to them, oh yeah, no, I wanted to do this. Can I do extras? Can I do that? Like, how they approach it there is great. Then the no fear factor. So when you talk about that freedom, it's, am I okay to go and do this because I know I'm going to go and try and win it back? I'm okay. It's okay to make a mistake if the reaction is right. Like, that's what I try and install in them as well. You know, you can go and do that. You can lose the ball, but what's the reaction? And I've always said it with teammates. You know, if he does go and do that, you know he's going to go and try a little bit of trickery. Go and help him. If he can't get back, you know, they suddenly pinged it 30, 40 yards. Can you bail him out and talk him in the right way? And I think that's what I want to look at, that attitude. If I see they try it and it's like a step over here and there and a chop, and then it's like just laugh because they give the ball away and it's just like, oh, whatever. No, it's not for me. Like, it's that attitude towards it and how they then approach it afterwards. It, for me, is what's key. And I go, right, okay, you're okay. Because I can go, even if you put up mediocre numbers, but I know in a better environment you might go and do a bit, I can then go with full confidence to say, like, hey, I've got this player. He just needs to be elevated now. This is his weaknesses, but he will go and give you this. Or when this thing does go wrong, he will try and put it right in this manner. I believe I can then, with hand on heart, go, yeah, he's good, or he's worth it. Whereas if they're not and they're not approaching it right, you can either stay at this level and see if you progress with me, or you end up falling by the wayside and finding a level that you can get away with that.
And when it comes to yourself understanding the players in whichever environment you're in, how important is it for a manager to adapt to the team but also bring their own ideas? What's the balance for you personally?
I guess it depends on the environment, what you've got in that changing room. Because if you've got I don't know, if you're looking at 20 lads in a changing room before training, and 14 of them are seasoned, like being in non-league, won things, been in, had success, and long in long in a tooth kind of thing. I think you've got to find a little bit of to adapt to them a little bit as much as you. I think that becomes a bit of a 50-50 split.
I see.
Because I think if you give them too much, they're going to run you run you ragged, because they know they are seasoned, and they'll push the barriers obviously with a manager, I think. Whereas when it comes to sort of maybe less experience, you're the talisman now. You're the one at the top, sort of barking orders. You're the conductor at that point. I think they've now got to adapt to you a little bit, because they don't know. They don't have.
That's interesting. So you're adapting to the player, like the player experience and the environment.
Yeah, for sure. Like last year, with SER,
yeah,
I was probably about 5 or 6 lads that were probably only 2-3 years younger than me at the time, and they've won leagues, they've played leagues above the level we were at, and have been successful. And it was like, I know what they're gonna try, like a bit of a twinge on the hammy, try and be on the bike or whatever. Wow. And it was like, no. Let's just you're not gonna go that far. This is what you're gonna do for me. But here's the sort of counter to that. Yeah,
I see.
And I think it was like great. But I knew then come Saturday, I knew what they were going to do. Like Saturday was like switched on football, rally everyone round. That's that. But I didn't want it to creep in where they were just getting away with too many things, because what does the youngster do then? Starts looking at them. Well, I can get away with that. I don't have to do that, because he's not doing it. And I think that was so important when I was playing. Like I looked up to some of these older players, and there's stuff that goes on in the change rooms back then you would never get away with, but it was character building from my perspective. So I think it's important that those lads stay engaged. So 50-50 split with those guys always on that, and I think then there's a bit of respect back, going, okay, he's all right. He's our level in that sense. But yeah, the youngsters, I'm not saying it becomes I don't want to say like dictatorship, but it's like, no, follow me.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do until you've proven yourself in a certain way.
And has there ever been a moment where you've lost a changing room, or you felt a bit like, hang on a minute, like it's a bit off here?
There's moments. I mean, where did we go to? I can't remember what game we had. I think this is recently with Lancing. It was a game, and it just like looked like there wasn't that interest. It was one game. It was just like, right, we lost the game, and it was just like, you're not taking on board instruction from myself, staff. Right, there was no cohesion with the team, and it was like, are we all? Is it all right? I think that was it was like a moment at that point. And obviously after the game, I just sort of sat down on the floor. To be fair, like, look, lads, let's just have a conversation, because forget football for a minute. Let's have a conversation. What's going on? Like, where you're at? Why are you not taking on board this? Why are you, And I think it wasn't like to say, oh well, look, if you're not doing it, I'm gonna go. It was like, look, guys, this we give up a lot of time, away. You say some of you use it as an escape, but you're still leaving something at the door that you could be obviously going back to. So what is it that's stopping you? Is it because if it's me, I either need to address it and do better, or shake your hands and say, look, all the best, lads. Like, I don't want to see you lot go down or do whatever. So if it means someone better coming in to do that, I think at that point, when I started to get the right responses, it was like, okay, it's not me at this point. It's not me at this point. There's other factors collectively that we need obviously to work on. I think at that moment I thought, because I'd never really experienced it like that. We obviously lost games, but there's some response, or there's a communication all the way through that game, no matter what. Whereas that one, it was a little bit off. But yeah, we obviously came back, and then we won a couple of games, so it was right. It was okay. I think early on when I started Epsom and Ewell, they would have been Southern Combination Step 6 when it was like my first sort of managerial role. We done really well obviously through the COVID period, and then first full season, I think I was 5 games in. I think we'd won 2, drawn 2, lost 1, or something like that, right? And I felt something was off.
But
Without going,
how do you feel? Like, how do you know that there's something?
because when you see little pockets conversation, when you walk in a room and then it's like, okay, people are suddenly like they stop talking,
Oh
or
wow.
running, and I was like,
Okay.
I could tell the players that were okay, and then I could tell players that weren't, and it was like, okay, this isn't, something's not right here. And obviously then I think it was like a week later, or like in the week, obviously suddenly got a message from the chairman going, look, I don't think it's going to work out. And I'm like, okay, we're really doing okay, we're like fourth in the league, we're only like a point off top.
Wow.
It was really odd. And then obviously, a few weeks later you see two of the lads that were in the changing room are now manager, assistant manager, so it was like you feel something's off at those elements. That's a long time ago. It is what it is. Like, I've gone on to
Right.
other things obviously at that point, but I should have probably worked that out a
Oh,
little
so you
sooner.
didn't address it in that
No.
moment, and then it
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
I see.
yeah.
So linked with what you've just mentioned about the chairman, this moves perfectly onto a very good question. I'm going to say it's a very good question because
Yeah.
how important is a manager's relationship with the board, with the chairman?
It's massive. However, you just don't know what's going on. That's I will say that until you've built up, and I'm talking even if you've built up years of a relationship with that person in the club, I think unless you've got something outside the club, you just don't know. I know you've had Gilesy on here before, and Gilesy's always said, "I'll pick your chairman," but you just don't know. Like, I saw, since being in Sussex, it's really opened up my eyes a little bit. And chairman at Hayward Heath, I know, like, he can pick up the phone to me, I can pick up the phone to him. I don't really have too many issues with the guy. I feel like that decision that he made obviously was a shock for a lot of people, because I thought there was a relationship between him and the manager. They're top of the league, and he lost his job. It's
Wow.
and I can't speak ill of either, because I don't know. I wasn't in there in either the situations, But on the outside, it's an odd decision. Did you know he was going to do that? Is he that sort of guy? As a chairman, don't know. Is there other pressures from the committee because they needed to do certain things? You don't know. Recently, obviously, for myself, I had a chairman when I first took the job. Like, listen, I'm the sort of chair you don't hear from me. Like, in terms of, like, when it comes to football, that's you. All you need to worry about is football, football, football. Anything else, we'll handle. If you want to have a say on it, you can have a say on it. But ultimately, we won't get involved in football, and you don't have to get involved in any of these other areas. Great. Bit different to my last sort of chairman, who actually, to be fair, I can't really speak ill of. He has an opinion. He's very opinionated in that sense. But you could have a football conversation with him, and even if he felt the sky was purple at that time when it was blatantly blue, he'd still darn a sword that it was purple, but he didn't let you get on with it. So I was like, okay, everything's okay. Obviously, with this one, obviously at Lancing, no problem. Like, just got on with things, and we had a tough run. I think we had like the last 7 games. I think 4 of the top 7 or something in that moment. Didn't hear from him. Normally, again, like when you have a few bad results, chairman normally is like, do you need something? What's going on? So I can report back to the committee, or the committee asking questions. Got none of that. Like none of that at Lancing. It's like, this is strange. Like, it just doesn't happen. So you can't tell whether you're doing a good job or not, in a sense, because you're not getting that communication. And then obviously, I got a phone call, and like midweek, literally, I think on the Wednesday night, watching Liverpool Villa, actually,
Yeah.
cracking game. And then said, listen, we're going to relieve you because we've had someone that wants to come and be be the manager and invest money, and he think he can give us more commercial. I'm like, he never asked me about commercial elements. She just told me to concentrate on football. So that's why I say you don't know what's going on in the background. You don't know the communications that's been happening with the committee. Albeit I was in a meeting the week before with the committee saying about what things that need to be done potentially on the outside to evaluate. So the chairman is so key. It's so key. You just don't know. And I wouldn't necessarily pick the club because of the chairman, and unless I knew them, like, and I knew they were like that, because everyone has a different opinion of someone from the outside. You can pick a chairman, but you got to really find out for yourself a little bit. So it is important. I think going forward, I'd like to probably, any chairman I'm with, is have a bit more communication, even if it's me going to them every time to say, like, not to say like justify how you're doing, but just to open up some form of comms at any point, because yeah, the silent treatment even when you're winning is odd.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned chairmen who have opinions on football.
Yeah.
So as a football manager, like, how does that work? Is it where you've put out a lineup that hasn't worked, and then after you get a phone call saying, "Oh, you should have played him. You should have done that."
Yeah. I mean, win or lose, they'll be like, "Oh, why did you do that? Why was this person not playing?
Wow.
You know, why did I thought we were a bit weak in this area and such." So
So how does that feel to you personally, having to justify?
at first I was like, are you sure? Like, what? You get a bit back up. What are you on about? You have won a game, or when you lost, you don't. You're gonna have to take it, but you're like, really?
But even then, you're the one at training.
Yeah.
You're the one with the players.
Yeah.
So I just find that very interesting, like
It's not.
strange.
I mean, there's many chairmen like that, and I've kind of got, not to say you got used to it, but I understand that they like. At the end of the day, it kind of to me shows like not just about them caring, but it is like their baby. If you've got a chairman that just walks in and is just like just looking at the bottom line in terms of money, or like just pure results, it's hard to actually have that conversation to why maybe you lost that week. Actually 4 lads run out there, they're ill, they've got chest infections or whatever it may be. So at least you can have that conversation. And I think he was all right with stuff like that. When you gave him some feedback back, he might predict that, that's all right then, that's all right. But there might still be something that he's unhappy with, but that's football. Like,
game of opinion.
Exactly. Like, you got to take that regardless. You could have a fan that's, you've won a game. Like, why are you still playing that guy? I don't think he's all that. I'm like, okay, but did you see, he might not have scored today, but do you see the runs off the ball that took away from someone else? They don't necessarily see those elements. So you can have a conversation with them, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. Yeah. I think that's the fact. But when you go to the chairman, that's always going to be elevated, and they're entirely entitled to it. I think as long as that conversation, to me, stays between myself and the chairman, I have no issues with it. Whereas if it suddenly gets out and it's like he's now saying it to loads of other people, fans and other committee members, I don't know why he's doing this, I don't know why he's doing that. Well, why are you employing me at that point? That would be my thing. Go and get someone that suits you at that point, because I'm not really going to have like millions of conversations about what I've just had with the chairman.
Exactly.
So as long as it stays in that room, it is what it is. But yeah, very hard to just pick your chairman. I say find out for yourself at the end of the day. And I think when you interview for any job, that's your time. You're not, whilst they're interviewing you, that is every moment for you to interview them.
And now, with all your experiences, you move on to your next club, for example, whoever that may be. What would you now ask from the club?
I think one is like the goals from the offset. Like, you don't just, okay, you're getting someone in, but why? Like, why? What is it you want? Do you want someone that can work with zero money? And I'd be like, it's not. I'm probably not your guy, because I don't really. The players I know are going to ask for something, even if I call in a favour, and I've probably used up a few favours at a couple of clubs, but it's one of those like, I'm going to need that. That's not for me, So I'm going to look at budget constraints versus what your goal is, because if you're saying zero budget, but we're like, let's just give it a go, okay, that goes hand in hand. Zero budget, but I've seen some teams that get playoffs. And I don't know, mate. Like,
not every football.
Yeah,
that's a very hard.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, like, I'm not sure about that. I think matching the goals with their actual, so their ambitions and their sort of drivers and what they've got in place to match that. If that's hand in hand, fine. I think then it's really understanding the decision makers in that club. Like, who is it that has final decision on the committee? Is it just a vote? Like, I'd like to understand those elements. Not to say I need to go and play politician per se, but you need to know, right, how much time I need to divvy up between someone that's very important volunteer that's doing things, but is worthy of like, hey, how you doing? Given the time of day in that sense, versus the person that needs to know exactly what's been going on at training, the game, the targets we're going after. So I can sort of rally that up as well. I think that's two important things for me to be asking them. And I think just what is the status quo between how much you need to know, how often do you want to have a line of communication, because then that's not a deciding factor, but it's just stuff you need to know before you go into that job. Do you want to hear from me? Do you want to know what's going on particular factors on and off the pitch? If they do, great, I can give it to them. I'd rather give them all the information, and if that, I don't need to know that. Okay, well then I know what I need to give you. I think that's important. Understanding training facility, all the training facilities. What have you got in place? What are the contingents? If the pitch isn't playable, what's the contingent for training if you train on the ground?
Right.
Because I noticed like training is so important, and I've been at teams when suddenly like the facilities aren't available for 2-3 weeks, and then you've got a game, and then they're like, I can't believe we lost. We ain't done anything for 3 weeks. They're the sort of things you kind of want to understand as well. And then again, like what their goals are off the pitch. Is there something else that they're trying to strive towards as well? I like to know those elements. We are looking for a new ground, or we're looking for sponsors for this X, Y, and Z. We want to put in a new women's team, girls team, youth teams, whatever it is. Because then if you know those other elements, it's just something else for you to keep an eye on, and like really embed yourself in the club by providing those opportunities as well.
So essentially, just being as honest and transparent as possible.
Yeah, facts. I think that's it. I don't want to be don't want it to sneak up on you.
Yeah.
I think any manager at the moment, like it's completely another job. Like it's another job, but yeah, it just doesn't stop. Not only is it a full-time job, but you feel like, in the nicest possible way, no matter how many men you got in your squad, they're like your little brothers now, like looking to you.
Yeah.
That's how it is. Like whether in a bad day, good day, they want recognition, or they want a G up, or they want this, they want to vent to you. They've got a problem, they're telling you about it. That's ultimately the difference. And I think if you're going to take on a club, you got to know you're giving up your time for these particular people you're sitting in front of, the fans and everyone else. Like you got to be prepared to do that and want to do that. Because if I walk into that room, I'm not giving up my time for you guys.
That's it.
This ain't the place for me then.
Yeah.
If you get that vibe as well, it's completely off at that point.
And as that leader of your players and the committee everyone's looking at you to get the results. Have there been moments where you've doubted yourself, your own selections, your own lineups, your own philosophy as a manager?
Not really, because that's what my staff are for. I think if I'm even questioning it, I'm not going to show that I'm like, am I doing the right thing here? But lads, what do you think? I'm thinking this or this. Where's your head at? And I think that's where it's so important to have the people that are next to you on point.
Right.
So I won't say I doubt myself, but you got to obviously steady yourself where you don't become too cocky, and then you just keep making mistake, and then taking that on board. That you have these guys to take a little bit of burden off your shoulders, and I think that's so important. So if I feel like I'm getting anywhere near to that edge of doubting myself, it's like, let me get an opinion.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just like pull yourself out of that little bubble quickly, and then that person can say, are you sure you're doing that? You're right. Like he hasn't done that well at that point. Okay, yeah, what are you thinking then? So that's the reason you hire your staff at the end of the day. So I don't really got myself in that. I'm sure it will come maybe one day down the line, but at this point, no. Like, I really do rely on my sort of staff a little bit for that as well, just to sort of assist, and as I said, that's what they're there for.
And do you have any regrets, both as a player and as a coach?
Player?
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, especially now when you go into sort of management and coaching, 100%. How I spoke to some coaches back in the day,
because now you're the manager.
Yeah. Yeah. Or how I approached the game at times. Yeah, like I have regrets for sure. Like also decisions of joining certain teams, and going, why did I spend so much time there. You know, maybe wasn't getting minutes at certain points. I should have just gone somewhere where people were asking me to go, and I could have played a little bit more. And yeah, I think it's mainly that really, like just how maybe I spoke to. I mean, my teammate, I've got teammates that I speak to from years. You know, people I've played against or played with, I still speak to now. So I don't think that's a problem. I think it's more some of my coaches. Not to say they wouldn't talk to me. It was just I could have probably done a bit better for them or taken on some of that a little bit more to maybe elevate myself as a coach. Like coach manager. I guess sometimes the regrets probably just come down to like certain players maybe could have given them more time, you know, to play for me or fit a system and things like that, and not necessarily like giving them chances like I'll go and have here's more minutes, but like rather than just like look mate, I don't think you're gonna play, like go. It's actually I probably should have kept them around a little bit more, not because they've gone on done more. It's like I didn't give them maybe that fair crack really at that time. So probably that's now like being a lesson learned. Like I give people maybe that extra chance, as it were, or chance to prove themselves. So yeah, there's regrets of people that didn't get that, but yeah. So going forward, I've kind of tried to address that as much as I can.
And what's been the toughest moment so far that you've experienced as a manager, and what do you now know to take into your future ventures?
Toughest moment. I think it's always tough going into a team that's already like midway through the season. I've done it twice now.
It must be tough, yeah.
SCR and Lancing. It is tough because you're not. If you came in, let's say someone did like 3 weeks of pre-season and then went and then you took over, you've still got 3-4 weeks potentially to put your ideas in play, and it's not costing you any points or any cup exits or anything like that. You've got time to bring players in, and they've not committed anywhere, and there's so many other things you can do in that moment. It's always so tough coming in midway through when there's already a squad there.
Yeah.
Some players you know, some players you don't. You take over. If you're lucky, you take over after the Saturday. So you can then go like, you know, last game's been played, you got 2 training sessions in a game, or you can be unlucky and you get 1 training session or none. So you come into it and you're like, okay, you've not really been able a chance to have conversations other than maybe over the phone with a few people. You haven't really been able to go and say I want this player, I want that player, and you're doing 7 days because you don't really know what you've got until you actually start to see them in the game. So when you do take over, I do think you do have like kind of 2-3 dead weeks in a sense with that. Unless obviously the club have been in a position where they know they're changing the manager and they've had a conversation with you early doors, and then conversations obviously are had obviously. But even then, I just think it's not completely right for me to go in and go just bomb every player, because in theory with Lancing, if you were to go that way, you would bomb every single player. They've got 4 points after, you know, however many games it was. So you're like, they can't be good. But actually, that's not the case. Things just weren't quite right. The belief wasn't there, and probably no disrespect to the guy that was there before, because he's a good coach. Just couldn't get something from him. So you have to. That's the hardest bit, I think, for me. That's always hard for me. And the other challenge is when even once you do take, you've got your team, is keeping everyone. It's so hard, I think, now to keep everyone. The challenges that I've had is I've not been in a team that's got like masses of budget. Like every team I've been in, there's someone that's probably got 4 or 5 times the amount, you know, and you're going up against that. Those are the challenges now, because once the season's done, everyone's obviously free game. Everyone's going to have conversations, and you're still going out there going, "Come, please, still play for me because I've got this." But it's like Gaffer, like I'm being offered like 2-3 times the amount. Like, are you telling me I shouldn't go for it? And you're like, yeah, you know, it's hard. So I think those are the challenges. That's probably been the hardest thing at the moment. But I do take a bit of pride in beating someone that's got, you know, 3 times the amount, or you cause an upset here and there, or you get a fine tune out of that player, and then you kind of do have to take it like as a bit of pinch of pride when you go, actually, do you know what, this guy's done well for me. No one really knew about him. No one gave a chance, and now he's gone and played a step above or 2 steps above. So it goes hand in hand. Challenge, but then you've got to see the silver lining that actually, if you've managed to succeed with that challenge and push players on, you get kind of a win-win.
You get a reputation for developing players.
Yeah, for sure.
And if there was a young aspiring coach watching this video right now, what would be your key piece of advice for them?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Just accept mistakes. Like, you've got to accept them. You're not going to be perfect. There's no perfect coach. And we're watching it now, with what Pep's done. We're watching mistakes he's made, and he's trying to rectify them. I think you've got to understand you're going to make mistakes. The advice is don't do it. Continue to make those same mistakes. At the end of the day, you can make them, but don't keep doing it. Like, whether that's man management, tactics, whatever it may be, don't keep making the same mistakes. Don't keep bringing in that same persona of player that comes in that causes you problems. Why do you keep doing it? And I think that would be my thing for anyone. I watch coaches that are seasoned and fresh. Like, go and do that. Man, that guy got you the sack last time, essentially. Those players, why are you still bringing them in? Or those tactics haven't worked. Why do you keep doing it? I think that's a bit, being able to adapt, being able to learn from your mistakes, probably the 2 things for me. And be prepared to put the time in and put the work in. I know, like, for your coaching, you're doing these podcasts and obviously your own content. That's great. You're prepared to put the work in. But that time when you're going, I can't do this, is the time to walk away.
Right. And that's a perfect way to end this podcast. How long was that? That was 52 minutes. That went, I don't know if that went quick for you, but that went very quick for me.
Yeah.
And that says it all. I really hope you've gained the value that I've gained from this podcast. And like, share, comment, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. But more importantly, take in everything that was discussed in this episode. Until next time, peace.